Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the long-term Bitcoin price chart and sharing where I think the cryptocurrency is most likely to go in 2021 and beyond. Now, as you may have noticed in my last video about Bitcoin, I shared some of the fundamental factors that I think will be driving the price of Bitcoin negatively in the next couple of years. And I know these are not very popular opinions because a lot of people are very bullish on Bitcoin right now, and a lot of people see the sky as the limit. But I'm also going to be sharing where I think the price of Bitcoin will be going on the charts this time. And I'm sure this is probably even less popular than my fundamental perspectives on Bitcoin, because this is going to be sharing a very bleak light for Bitcoin in the next year or two. But I know that I could be completely wrong about this. And I want to make sure that everyone is looking at all the different scenarios, because I really tried to look at all the different scenarios when coming up with my own opinion on where I think the price of Bitcoin is most likely to go. So in this video, I'm not only going to be sharing the pattern that I think Bitcoin is in, but I'm going to be sharing the other two main scenarios for Bitcoin and where it could be going in the next couple of years. I'm going to share all of my thoughts on each one of these as we break them down together. And then I'll be concluding with where I think Bitcoin is going on the price chart in the next year or two. Throughout this video, I'm going to be using Elliot Wave terminology in order to explain where we are in Bitcoin's trend and what are the different potential scenarios given different interpretations of where we are in the trend. And the general idea of Elliot Wave is that in every completed trend, there is 5 waves within that trend. After the 5 waves, then there's an ABC correction or a 3-wave correction. After that, then there's another 5 waves. And that's the general idea. 5 waves up, 3 waves down. That's a complete trend. And in this video, we are only going to be looking at the long-term price chart of Bitcoin. And so we're not going to be getting super in-depth of where exactly we are in that trend. We're not going to be trying to answer where Bitcoin is going to be tomorrow. We're trying to figure out where Bitcoin will be next year and the year after that, and whether or not we are in a favorable trend for Bitcoin. With that being said, let's dive right into the Bitcoin price chart. So first, let's familiarize ourselves with the Bitcoin price chart. So this is Bitcoin priced in US dollars, and this is on Bitstamp. And so you can find this exact chart on TradingView. And this is the monthly chart. And so each one of these candles took a month to complete. And this just shows where the price of Bitcoin went during each one of those months. And so when I'm looking at this chart, all I can really understand is that Bitcoin went up wildly towards the end of 2017 up to around $20,000. It went straight down to around $3,100 toward the end of 2018. It went back up in the middle of 2019 up to $14,000. It went back down to $3,800 in March of 2020. And since then, it has just skyrocketed up to around $29,000, which is basically the high. And so we are continuing up in this very strong trend. And the question is, where do we go now? Well, in order to understand where we are likely to go next, we have to take into account the history of Bitcoin and try to analyze the pattern. And so looking at this and understanding that Bitcoin has been around since around 2010, the fact that I can really only interpret the last 3 years of the price history of Bitcoin is not good. We have to figure out how we can understand the previous price action of Bitcoin. And the fact of the matter is, this just looks like a flat line. And so in order to understand the relative change in the history, in the price history of Bitcoin, we have to change this from an arithmetic scale to a logarithmic scale right here. And there we are. Now we can take the percentage increase in Bitcoin and we can look at it through a more relative lens. So a 10% price increase over here is similar to a 10% price increase in current price terms, which is much higher than it was over here. So now we can actually look at this and see that Bitcoin has had this nice steady trend up and a trend down, up, trend down, and now we're heading back up again. So this leads us to the first potential price prediction of Bitcoin, or the first potential wave count of Bitcoin. This first wave count supports the idea that Bitcoin will continue its structure up for the rest of 2021. However, this wave count suggests that Bitcoin is in its last wave up, and that once that wave is complete, it will start a multi-year bear market. Now, again, I don't agree with this count, and I'll share why, but this is basically the count. And again, Elliot Wave has to do with 5 waves up, 3 waves down. And so this is the beginning of the chart, and this price goes up to $1,100, down to around $160. So that's wave 1, and then this is wave 2 right here. We go up in wave 3, we have wave 4, and now we are doing wave 5 right now. We're in the process of wave 5. And so again, the idea of Elliott Wave is that within each of these waves is also 5 waves. So you could kind of say this is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5. And this one is pretty hard to say because there are a bunch of little waves within it. But the point is that within each of these waves as well is another 5 waves, and you can continue going deeper and deeper into it. Now, the idea here is that we're in the final wave, the 5th wave, which means this 5th wave will have 5 waves within it. And so the argument right here is that Bitcoin is in the 3rd wave, which means if we were to break this down further, the 5th wave, we would have had the 1st wave over here in the middle of 2019, the 2nd wave, which was March of 2020, and now we're going up in the 3rd wave. And this will, we still haven't topped out, so maybe we continue going up, who knows? But the idea is that once this wave does complete, we'll have a 4th wave, which cannot violate the top of wave 1, and then we'll have a 5th wave. And then once this is complete, once we have a 5 wave move up since the end of 2018, this will then be 5 waves up, and then we will have a large degree bear market, which means the price of Bitcoin will go down in A, B, C, something like this right here, something like this, something like A, B, and C, something like that. That's kind of the idea. So the reason why I disagree with this wave count is because, and again, the analysts that have this count, I do respect that. I think they have a lot of good analysis, and they're pretty vocal. But I don't agree with this count because the chart that they're using, which is this chart right here, the Bitstamp chart that goes back to around 2012, late 2011, it doesn't take into account all of the historic Bitcoin price. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this other chart right here. It's called BLX, or the Brave New Coin Liquid Index for Bitcoin. And this is that chart. And this, as you can see, goes back to 2010. And if we look at this and we just label the previous chart, just like I had it before, where we have wave 1 right here, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and then wave 5 going up. Well, a clear mishap of this count is that we completely disregard this big wave right here that happened during 2010 and into the middle of 2011. That's completely discounted. And so this is not taking into account all of the price history of Bitcoin. And so I don't think it's a very valid count because of that. Furthermore, if we were to take that previous count and apply it while also assuming that we're going to have another wave up like we're having currently, then the only way I'd be able to count it is where we have wave 1 right here, wave 2 down here, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, and then we'd be having like a wave 6 and then a wave 7, and that just doesn't make sense. We don't have 7 waves in an Elliott wave impulse. We have 5 waves. And so if this were to be labeled the way I think it should be, with using the longest term price chart, the price chart with the most history on it, then I don't think they would be having that wave count, because it would be very clear that they're missing a wave. And that would mean that the market already ended over here, at least in its bull market phase. So that's the reason why I don't think we're going to be going up in a 7th wave, because I think we've already finished a 5-wave impulse. And so that takes us right to the next potential scenario. Again, I don't subscribe to this scenario either, but I also want to share it so that everyone is getting different perspectives on the potential path of Bitcoin and its price, because I could be completely wrong. But we're going to use this chart again. And this is where we have the long-term price chart going 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, under this scenario, Bitcoin will have already finished its first wave, which means that this right here was the entire bear market, where we have an ABC, A, B, C, and we'll label this in red like that. And now we're already starting the next wave. So that means the bear market is over. This was the bear market. And now we're starting wave 3, which means that this would be, in other terms, we just kind of minimize this and we just thought of this as all this big 5-wave move up over 10 years, or this is actually only about 7 or 8 years. This is all one big wave. All right. And then this right here is wave 2. And now we're starting another wave, where this would be wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, which means proportionally, this wave 3 will likely be another 6, 7, 8 years. And that means Bitcoin will be going up in a very, very dramatic pace, because this would mean, and usually wave 3s are the strongest of 5 waves. So this trend would not be ending until, who knows, if wave 1 took 10 years, that means this wave 3 will be taking another, 10-ish years. But we're just in the beginning stages of this wave. Hypothetically, that's the argument. So that's where this price chart suggests Bitcoin would go if this was already the wave 2. If this was the whole A, B, C, and let me zoom this in so you all can kind of see this. This definitely was an ABC. We had a big move down, a sideways move in wave B, and then a wave C down. So that was 3 waves. So that it's possible. It's possible that that's the case, and now Bitcoin is going to be just going straight up from here. But I'm going to share why I don't think this is the case. So the main reason why I don't think that this move down is the entire bear market is because if we compare the bear market that we had in 2017 down to 2018, and we compare that to the bear market here and over here in 2011, 2012, and also to the bear market in 2014, this bear market was actually the most mild bear market. This bear market over here, I think, let's actually measure these out. This bear market in 2011, if if we measure it out, this was about a 93% decline in the price of Bitcoin. It went from about $32 down to $2. And that took about, let's see, 6 months. So a 93% decline in the price of Bitcoin. Now, this chart, or this bear market over here in Bitcoin, it went down from there down to, that was the low right there, 87%. That was an 87% decline, and it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 14 months. So an 87% decline in 14 months. Now this bear market over here, which is the one that everyone remembers, because this is the bear market where a lot of retail investors got caught up in. I actually got caught up in this one. And this went from, this was an 84% decline, and this was a year-long bear market. So the way Elliot Wave works is that after 5 waves, you have a large degree ABC move down. Now this correction after 5 waves, and let's just put this back up so this is real clear for everyone. Going up 5 waves. These corrections over here, corrections are wave 4s and wave 2s. These corrections are internal corrections of this larger degree move up. This correction over here after a 5 wave impulse should be even larger in comparison to these smaller corrections. So the fact that this correction over here was shorter than this correction was 14 months, this was a year long. It was longer than this correction, but it was also not as severe. This was 84%, this decline was 87%, and this decline was 93%. This tells me that, first of all, this was not enough of a bear market. This was not a severe enough bear market for the extent of this rally, for the extent of this trend. And you might be saying 84%, that's a massive decline. That's plenty of a bear market for us. Well, I totally understand. But when we're looking at it proportionally to the rest of this structure, I don't think it's very likely that this was the whole thing right here. Now, another reason why I don't think that this was the extent of the bear market, and that we're about to start another decade-long bull market, where this is just going to go straight to 100, 200, 300, $500,000 per Bitcoin kind of trajectory. Why I don't think that's about to happen is because we're starting this trend off relatively early on extreme optimism and greed. This is the Bitcoin Fear Greed Index. And we can see that we've been in the extreme greed level for a while. Let me just refresh this to make sure that this is all, okay, so we're down to 94 out of 100. And if we take a look at the last year, we can see that here we are, since we've been in extreme greed levels since around November, and we've been hovering around 90 for the last several months. If we look at the max this chart has, we hit 95 out of 100 one time, like one day, and then it went straight down. We've been hovering over here at these extreme greed levels for months now. So this is unheard of, and this chart only goes back to the beginning of 2018. So it doesn't show the historic fear greed on Bitcoin, just because I don't think it was available back then. But this is the longest amount of time that we've seen Bitcoin, the market, be at these very greedy levels, which means I don't think we're about to start, or at least we're in the early stages of a bull market. I don't think so. I think we're actually towards the end of some kind of rally. So that's one reason why I don't think we're about to start some kind of multi-year move up in the price of Bitcoin. Now, again, I could be completely wrong, and that's why I wanted to share these other scenarios and share why I disagree with the prospects of those scenarios. I completely understand them, and I am not writing them off, but I'm just sharing why I don't think they're as likely as the scenario that I'm about to show you is. And finally, I'm going to be sharing one more potential scenario for Bitcoin. And this is where personally I think Bitcoin is at in its trend, and I think is going to be the pattern that ultimately unfolds. But I could be completely wrong on that. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I shared the other potential scenarios for Bitcoin, which are scenarios that are more popular and scenarios that more people think will play out. But this scenario is much less popular and I don't think as widely held because it's a very technical outlook based off of Elliot Wave patterns. So just to start off with, this is a very clear 5-wave trend, and I agree with this count that it's a clear 5-wave moves up from 2010 up to 2017. And we can see it even clearer when we look at it right here. Wave 1, wave 2, wave 3 followed the first halving, wave 4, and then wave 5 followed the second halving. Now the question is, now what? Where do we go now? And was this correction over here, this correction from the end of 2017 to the end of 2018, was that really the whole correction? Because this correction, which is supposed to be proportionate to a larger 5-wave move up in Bitcoin that had never happened before, because Bitcoin has only been around since 2009. So why was this decline over here after a 5-wave move up over 7 years, or yeah, a little bit more than that? Why was this decline shallower than both of these other declines, right? Over here and over here. And why was it also shorter than the bear market in 2013 through 2014? So to me, it's hard to really answer that. But when I'm looking at this chart, I see it as being much more likely that this was only one part of the bear market. And so rather than this being A, B, C, I think it's much more likely that this was just wave A and that we are actually still in the bear market. Now you might be saying, Abie, listen now, we just took out the all-time high, the previous all-time high, by over $10,000. How can we still be in a bear market when the price of Bitcoin is just going to the moon? If we look at this on a linear scale, I mean, look at this. Bitcoin is just going straight up. How can this be a bear market rally? Well, I understand that it's kind of weird to consider that. But when we look at this on a logarithmic scale, this does not necessarily have to mean that Bitcoin is going to be having another one of these kind of movements. Right now, well, we're around here. The question is, are we going to have this move from $1,800 all the way up to $20,000? That's the question. Or is this going to be some kind of bull trap? So in my opinion, I think we are tracing out what's called an expanded flat. And I think this is going to eventually trace out in wave A, which already happened. And this is, we're going up right now in wave B. And I don't know when this is going to top out, but I think we're reasonably close to the high. And then we're going to go down in a wave C. In an expanded flat, the wave C takes out the bottom of wave A, and the wave B takes out the top of wave A. So in order to share this in a more relatable way, I'm going to share this chart right here, which shows an expanded flat. This is the idea of the pattern. And so here we can see we have a wave A, wave B takes out the top of wave A, and then wave C takes out the bottom of wave A. Now this pattern takes a pattern of 3 waves in wave A, 3 waves in wave B, and then 5 waves in wave C. So if we go back to the previous chart over here, we go back to BLX, we can see that this movement in Bitcoin took the shape of a 3-wave move down. We had 1 wave down, a zigzag ugly wave 2 down, or 2 up, and then 3 down. So that was wave A. And so far, wave B has taken the shape of 3 waves as well. We had a wave A up, we had a wave B down, and then we're in currently a wave C up. Now, we don't know. This might take the shape of 5 waves. It might go up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. We don't know yet. The real important part of this pattern really hinges right here at 13,800. If this pattern, if the Bitcoin price takes out 13,800, then that will mean that the Bitcoin price, that it can't be a wave 4, because the wave 4 can't go below the hypothetical wave 1. So anyways, that's just something to kind of keep in mind. But so far, this wave B has traced out, it's gone above the all-time high, and it's traced out 3 waves. And then I'm expecting a wave C down. Now, this can also culminate in another pattern called a running flat, which means that the price of Bitcoin doesn't actually have to take out wave A. It could come go down something like that, where it goes down in 5 waves, but wave C doesn't take out the bottom of wave A. Now, that's possible, but again, I'm not going to be trying to predict which one it will be, because we have absolutely no idea of which pattern might actually take place. We're just going to have to wait to get more information. But this is the reason why I'm not buying Bitcoin or holding more Bitcoin, because I don't think that this pattern is about to start a new bull market. I think we're actually still in the middle of a bear market. So that is my personal opinion on the price of Bitcoin. And I think if we take a look at this chart that I shared before, I think this chart really shares a really cool kind of framework for this pattern. And personally, I think we're in the 3rd wave of B. So we have the 3 waves of A, 3 waves of B, 5 waves of C. I think we're right now in this 3rd wave of B. And I think we're towards the top end of this wave B, of this 3rd wave of B. Now, I don't know how close we are. If we take a look at the chart again, and we break this down to a little bit more of a detailed chart, this is the weekly chart of Bitcoin. And this is that 3rd wave of B going up. And I personally think that this was wave 1, and wave C's are usually 5 waves. So I'm expecting this to take the shape of 5 waves up and before it tops out. And I think we're reasonably close. Now, we might only be done with 3 waves, where this could be wave 1, this could be wave 2, or this could all be wave 1. This is wave 2, and then we have wave 3, and then we need a wave 4 and a wave 5. That it might go something like that, or we might already be very close to the top. I really don't know. The short-term chart, it doesn't look like we're done yet to the top side, but I could be wrong about that. We've already gone about $10,000 above the previous all-time high. In a wave B, it can go a good deal above the all-time high. I'm actually going to share a chart here in just one moment. So here's the chart I wanted to show you all. This is an example of an expanded flat ABC pattern. And this is the S&P 500. And this took place right around the middle of 2018. We had a wave A, a wave B, which took out the all-time high, the previous all-time high. And then we had a wave C. And this is an example of an expanded flat where wave B takes out the top of wave A and wave C takes out the bottom of wave A. And so we can also see the internal waves of this quite clearly. We had 3 waves A, we have 3 waves B. This is kind of an ugly second wave of B. And then we have a third wave. And then we have a very steep 5-wave move down in C. This is impulsive. And so this is just an example of that kind of ABC expanded flat pattern. And it happens a lot in market structures. And so this is not an uncommon pattern at all. And the question is whether or not it's going to develop. And I'm going to be taking a much closer look on these charts on my Instagram account. I'm going to be doing about a weekly kind of update on Bitcoin. And so if you want to see some short-term updates on the price of Bitcoin and how the chart looks, I'm going to be posting some charts on that Instagram account. I'll put that in the bio for anyone interested. But this is where I see Bitcoin going. I see it going much lower before it goes much higher. I think we're still in this long bear market that still is ongoing. And this is kind of a euphoric part of that bear market because a lot of people think we've already ended the bear market back in the end of 2018. And we had this other second bear market scare back in March of 2020. And so we will see whether or not it's the end of the bear market. For Bitcoin investors, I hope they're right. But this is just the way that I'm reading the chart. And I feel that this way of reading it, where Bitcoin does go below its wave A extreme, is a much more proportionate way to look at this correction, because I don't think this right here is enough of a correction for this kind of 5-wave move up that took 6-7 years to develop. I think this is way too small of a wave 2. And personally, I think we are just beginning the second stage or the third stage of the bear market. Well, we haven't really started it yet because we're still going up. But I do think this potential pattern is very much in play. The question is, how high do we go before we top out? That part I really cannot tell you, because right now we're in a wave C of B, which means this will take the shape of 5 waves. Now, if you think that the first scenario is happening, then you expect this to be a third wave, where we'll have a 4th wave correction and then go up again. Personally, I think when this wave ends, I don't think we're going to be going in another correction in a wave 4, which will be proportionate to this. And this took 9 months. So I don't see that happening. I guess the argument is that we're in the very early stages of this wave 3, in which we'll probably go up in wave 3 for another 6 months or something before going lower in a wave 4. But I just don't see that as being very likely, because I would also have to say that the stock market and all other markets are going to continue going up in this crazy speculative market. And I just don't see that as being very likely. And I also just see from an objective perspective that this wave count is much, much cleaner and much more, is probably the best count that I can see when looking at Bitcoin, where we've had a 5-wave move up and we are still in the process of tracing out a multi-year bear market. And when this bear market completes and we go down in a wave C, whether that takes out wave A or not, this will be an amazing buying opportunity in Bitcoin. And I think will be a great time to accumulate as much as you can of this scarce asset, because I think it will have a lot of utility and a lot of value in the economy that we're heading into, where you have central bank digital currencies and you have constraints on how you can conduct your purchases and how you can transact value with others. Being able to have this kind of asset that's decentralized, that's kind of an opt out of the traditional financial system, I think will be very valuable, and will be in high demand. So I'm going to be looking at the price of Bitcoin very closely, but I just wanted to make this video to share all the different scenarios for Bitcoin, why it's not that simple, um, and why I have a negative uh, forecast on Bitcoin in the next year or two. Now, again, I don't know when this wave is going to top out, but I do suspect when this wave tops out and we start correcting, that will be a more significant correction than just a wave four and then another big move up. Because in that scenario, everyone would be right who's buying in, expecting to sell it before we get with outside of that year and a half gap between halvings. And that's usually when the price of Bitcoin tops out. And so, what most people I think are doing are buying and accumulating over here, and then they're waiting to sell it between a year and a year and a half after the halving. And so, I don't think we're going to see this beautiful kind of event where everyone makes a bunch of money and then everyone sells it. Because again, some people are going to get caught with the bag, and I think it's going to be a very, very severe correction, because everyone has kind of caught on to this pattern, and everyone is trying to get in on the next run up, before it happens. And so I think that's why we've seen a huge increase in the price of Bitcoin. But I don't think that will continue all throughout 2021. But it will be very interesting to see. That's all I can say. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you all have a better grasp of all the different potential scenarios for Bitcoin, and also the pros and cons of each of these counts and interpretations. So if you have any other questions about the fundamental factors that I talked about last video, this video, or any other questions at all, let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you'd like to do a live stream all about Bitcoin, where we could just have a discussion and talk about a lot of the important topics in this cryptocurrency space and in this market that I think will be very significant in the next 5-10 years. So don't hesitate to let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.